right, so Daryl, making tough decisions, this is really block number 3 in the stack. So we have knowledge and information and understanding that information, being knowledge. How does the knowledge relate to our circumstances, real world circumstances as far as where we live, what time it is, and maybe my energy level, those kind of things. And then I think important is making in tough decisions is understanding the consequences of the decision. So if I decide this, then this will be the result. And I think that is kind of like that pros and cons list that people generally think of being the only thing that you need to make a decision, which we don't think that is true. That's why we did this.
Right.
But it does play an important role. I think here is the pros and cons. This is, if I do this, then this will result. And that's an important thing to consider in making a decision. But it's not just, how many things are on the list, right?
Oh man, it's really not. We've all seen this, right? Someone struggling with a decision, and you hear someone in the group, you hear him say, make a pros and cons list.
Just make a pros and cons list. That's it.
Whichever side is longer, that's your best decision, right? Don't worry that there's 30 things in the pros column. Don't worry about one of the other 2 things being someone dies.
Right.
There's still only 2 items, know.
So really, mostly pros.
Mostly pros. So this is the problem that happens here, and what we can do to counteract that, or to sort of complete that process, rather, is to factor in to take two additional steps. Okay.
So you make the pros and cons list.
You got your pros and cons list, and then you figure out what the scope is of each item. Okay, this is the first step. So your scope is how many consequences are there, and basically this is
like a ripple effect kind of thing.
It's like a ripple effect. It's almost like how long is each of your. That's kind of like the length of the list.
Okay.
Because the scope of this decision is going to be, well, it's going to affect my relationship with this person. It's going to affect my relationship with this other person as well. It's going to affect my work, how much free time I have. It's
My
going to affect
income,
my
maybe,
paycheck. So these are the multitude of factors. That's the scope of it. Okay, think about the scope as the breadth.
And it could be good things or...
That's right. Good things and bad things. You need to factor both.
Right.
So the second step is the intensity. Okay, and that's the difference between if I make this decision, I'm going to be out $10.
Right.
Okay, or if I make this decision, I am liable to break my leg. Okay, that's much more intense than losing $10.
Right.
All right, and we need to account for that for each one of the choices in the decision. So if you're faced with a decision, I have to choose A, B, or C. Okay, you need to determine the scope and intensity for A, the scope and intensity for B, and for C. All right, because that gives you a clear and full picture of what the results are likely to be. Obviously, we don't know the future. Sometimes we have to project these a little bit, but to the best of our understanding, what we're going to end up with.
So I thought about this. We just got done doing a Crucial Conversations seminar, and this woman in one of the scenarios is placed into this situation where she has to either go along with the boss's decision or not, and what are the ramifications of that? Well, one might be, well, if she goes along, she'll have better status at work, but it might take so much time that it begins to affect her home life and how much time she's spending with her kids or with her family. So that's intensity, right?
Right.
Do you care more about what happens at work or at home? Like, those are the kind of intensity things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's really both.
Yeah.
Because the
Right.
scope is the fact that it won't just affect her at work. It's also going to affect her at home.
Right.
That's a broader scope.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't pay attention to that scope,
Mhm.
you're liable to just look at work and say, hey, this is going to be a great thing.
Yeah.
It's going to help me at work.
Right.
So it's important to consider the consequences, both good and bad, of a decision. How wide-reaching is that going to be, and how intense is that going to be?
Yeah. Excellent.